The Brunali slaughtered their way across the stars for generations without challenge or mercy until they set their sights on Earth. Conquering world after world, subjugating entire species, the ruthless alien empire had never known defeat under the iron fist of Emperor Grus. Thousands of planets were stripped of resources, populations enslaved or exterminated. The Brunali war machine seemed unstoppable. But unbeknownst to the arrogant invaders, humanity had been quietly preparing for their inevitable arrival. Masterminded by brilliant strategist Caleb Young, Earth built up a clandestine military force with cutting-edge technologies and sprawling hidden outposts. Humans studied the movements and tactics of the Brunali, analyzing their strengths and weaknesses, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When the overconfident Brunali armada finally emerged from hyperspace above Earth, expecting another primitive civilization ripe for conquest, they were stunned to face an advanced human defense force ready for battle. Earth's planetary shield shrugged off the aliens' opening salvos. Swarms of nimble human fighters tore into the Brunali capital ships. The shocked invaders soon found themselves outmatched, seeing warship after mighty warship crippled or destroyed by Earth's superior weapons and tactics. Too proud to sound the retreat, Emperor Grus ordered wave after desperate wave of attacks, only to watch his grand invasion crumble into a nightmare of wrecked vessels and fleeing survivors. The once triumphant Brunali war fleet, scourge of the galaxy, was reduced to burning hulks and stragglers, limping away from the unexpected mauling over Earth. Humankind's message was clear. This planet would not fall like the rest. Here, the marauding alien empire would finally meet its match. But Caleb Young knew the real fight was just beginning. A new galactic war was dawning as two unyielding civilizations, human and alien, faced off for dominance or survival. The Brunali would return, enraged and bent on vengeance against the upstart Earthlings who dared to defy them. Humanity now found itself at the center of an epic power struggle that would reshape the cosmos forever. As both sides regrouped and strategized, the entire galaxy held its breath, waiting to see which species would rise as the ultimate victor, and which would be consigned to oblivion. In the smoldering wreckage of the Brunali fleet, Emperor Grus seethed with impossibly strong rage as his surviving warships limped back to the nearest repair yards. The stinging defeat at Earth had shaken the foundations of his empire and instilled the first seeds of doubt in his own invincibility. His clawed fist clenched until ichor dripped from his palms. This insult would not go unanswered. "Summon Grand Admiral Zarn," Grus snarled at a trembling adjutant. "I want the head of every human on a pike." In the grand strategy room of his battered flagship, Zarn studied the flickering holomaps with a calculating eye. The Brunali fleet had gravely underestimated Earth's defensive capabilities and paid a bloody price. Zarn's mind raced as he analyzed the disaster, already formulating new plans. They would not make the same mistake twice. "My Emperor," Zarn bowed low as Grus stormed into the chamber, "I have a proposal for our—" "I want them burned from the stars," Grus cut him off with a slash of his hand. "Every ship, every resource, every warrior we have, throw them all at Earth, immediately." Zarn suppressed a grimace. He had to force his emperor to see reason, or risk annihilation. "Sire, we must be strategic. The Earthlings hurt us gravely. If we strike too soon, without proper preparation, we risk losing—" "Are you questioning me?" Grus roared, his eyes blazing with unhinged fury. The throne room fell deathly silent. Zarn saw madness lurking in his emperor's expression. He treaded carefully, knowing his next words could be his last. "Never, my lord," Zarn spoke slowly and calmly, as if soothing a wild animal. "I only wish to see humanity crushed decisively under your glorious reign. But to do so, we must be clever. We sacrificed too much of our strength in the first wave. Allow me to enact a plan that will cripple Earth's defenses and ensure your ultimate victory." Grus glared at his Grand Admiral for a long, tense moment. No one dared breathe. Finally, the Emperor gave a sharp nod. "You have one chance, Zarn. Fail me, and I will have your skeleton as my footstool." As Zarn detailed his multi-pronged scheme to weaken and distract Earth, Light years away, Caleb Young pored over the after-action reports flowing in from humanity's historic triumph. The first jubilation had given way to dog drive as the scale of the impending conflict became clear. This was no border skirmish or pirate incursion. Earth had just declared war on the greatest power in the galaxy. "We bloodied them, but the Brunali are far from beaten," Caleb said grimly to the assembled Earth commanders. "That was just the first round. We must press our advantage now before they regroup for a counterstrike." He looked to Admiral Singh, her uniform still stained with blood and sweat from the brutal battle. "I need your fastest, stealthiest ships to lead lightning raids into Brunali space. We'll hit their supply lines and shipyards, throw their war machine into chaos. Buy ourselves time to fortify Sol." Singh gave a tight smile. "We'll make them bleed, sir. They'll regret ever setting foot in our system." As Earth's ragtag fleet plunged through secret wormhole gates into the heart of the alien empire, a series of vicious smash-and-grab attacks left key Brunali installations in ruins. Fuel depots exploded into blossoming fireballs. Orbital dockyards were reduced to plumes of shattered metal. Earth was taking the fight to the enemy, and the once invincible Brunali suddenly looked vulnerable. But Grand Admiral Zarn would not be so easily outfoxed. Even as Earth ships rampaged behind his lines, he laid a cunning trap. Sacrificing a handful of damaged cruisers as bait, he lured an Earth battle group into a crushing ambush around a remote gas giant. The human ships fought ferociously, but found themselves outmaneuvered and outnumbered. Only a desperate fighting retreat led by Admiral Singh saved the force from total destruction. As the battered Earth survivors limped home, Gruss watched the reports of Zarn's success with manic glee. "This is just the beginning," he crowed to his assembled sycophants. "I want every ship ready for a renewed assault on Earth within a cycle. We will drown their world in fire until nothing is left but ashes." The Emperor's bloodshot eyes darted around the room, seeing phantom assassins in every shadow. In a fit of paranoid rage, he ordered the immediate executions of a dozen fleet officers for invented crimes of cowardice and disloyalty. As the unlucky Brunali were dragged screaming to the airlock, a sickening pall of fear began to permeate every corner of the Imperial court. Zarn could only watch in mounting dread as his Emperor's sanity crumbled. He had witnessed Gruss's slow unraveling for years, but the Earth debacle seemed to have pushed the tyrant over the edge into frothing madness. The Grand Admiral was trapped between his duty and the growing realization that the greatest threat to the Brunali now wore the Imperial crown. Light years away, oblivious to the widening cracks in their enemy's dedication, Caleb and Earth's defenders grimly tallied their losses and braced for the coming storm. The first blows had been struck, and all of Sol's system now transformed into a churning war economy. Shipyards and weapons factories roared to life as Earth rearmed for a fight to the bitter end. The first human Brunali war had entered a dangerous new stage, and all of galactic civilization trembled at the coming clash of the Titans. As Earth's defenders braced for the coming storm, Caleb Young strode into a cavernous hangar deep beneath the lunar surface. Row upon row of sleek, obsidian warships stretched as far as the eye could see. "Magnificent, aren't they?" Admiral Singh whispered, her eyes gleaming with pride. Young nodded, running a hand along the smooth hull of the nearest vessel. "Project Phantom, our ace in the hole. Let's hope it's enough." Across the void of space, Grand Admiral Zarn stood before Emperor Gruss, his posture rigid. "My lord, I strongly advise against this attack. Our intelligence suggests—" "Silence!" Gruss roared, spittle flying from his maw. "I will not be denied my vengeance. The Armada advances. Now!" Zarn bowed stiffly and left, his mandibles clicking with worry. As the Brunali war fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Sol, they found an empty void. Gruss leaned forward on his throne, eyes narrowed. "Where are the human defenses?" Suddenly, space itself seemed to ripple and tear. Massive dreadnoughts materialized from thin air, their weapons already glowing with hardly restrained energy. "Impossible," Gruss breathed. The space around the Brunali Armada erupted in searing light as the human ships opened fire. Alien vessels were torn apart by weapons beyond their comprehension, while Earth's cloaked fleet danced between return salvos like ghosts. On the bridge of the UES Saratoga, Admiral Jameson Blake watched the carnage with grim satisfaction. "We've got them on the run. It's time to take the fight to their doorstep." He turned to his communications officer. "Get me a direct line to the president. I have a proposition that will end this war once and for all." Meanwhile, Caleb Young found himself in heated debate with Earth's military leadership. "Admiral Blake's plan is reckless. We can't leave Earth exposed." But as reports of the Brunali fleet's decimation poured in, Young saw the tide of opinion turning against him. The scent of total victory was in the air, and few could resist its intoxicating aroma. Deep in Brunali space, Grand Admiral Zarn narrowly avoided a plasma bolt that reduced his quarters to slag. He dove through maintenance tunnels, his heart racing. The Emperor had finally snapped, seeing traitors in every shadow. As Zarn disappeared into the bowels of the Imperial Palace, he activated a secure comm channel. "This is Zarn. The time has come. For the good of the Empire, Gruss must fall." Back in Sol, the remnants of the Brunali invasion force scattered, leaderless and terrified. Caleb Young's lips pressed into a thin line as he assumed command of a special hunter-killer group. "No survivors," he ordered, hating the words even as he spoke them. The war had entered a new phase, and Young felt a creeping dread. As Admiral Blake's victorious armada set course for the heart of Brunali space, he couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to cross a line from which there was no return. The flashes of weapons fire illuminated the bridge of the UES Saratoga as Admiral Jameson Blake barked orders to his crew. The human armada had pushed deep into Brunali territory, laying waste to their defenses and forcing Emperor Gruss into a desperate corner. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations from the Crux system," a sensor officer called out, her voice tight with alarm. Blake's eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. "Magnify." The holographic image zoomed in on Crux Prime, revealing a swirling vortex of impossible size beginning to form near the planet's core. Realization dawned on the Admiral's face, followed swiftly by horror. "All ships, emergency withdrawal!" he roared into the fleet-wide comm. "Gruss has activated some kind of doomsday device. We need to get out of here now." As the human fleet began its frantic retreat, Blake turned to his XO. "What's the status of our damaged ships?" "Sir, we have at least a dozen vessels that won't make it out in time," the officer replied grimly. Blake's face hardened. "Initiate emergency evac protocols. I want every soul we can save off those ships before that vortex consumes them." Across the system, escape pods and shuttles streamed from crippled human warships as the maw of the artificial wormhole expanded. Entire moons were torn apart, reduced to swirling debris as they were pulled inexorably toward oblivion. On the bridge of his flagship, Emperor Gruss watched the destruction with mad glee. "Let them run," he hissed. "If I cannot have victory, none shall." Grand Admiral Zarn stared at his emperor in abject horror before slipping away, already formulating plans for what must come next. Back on Earth, Caleb Young pored over the incoming data from Crux, his face ashen. "The device will eventually collapse, but not before it takes the entire system with it," he reported to the assembled Earth leadership. "We've paid a heavy price for this victory." As reports of casualties trickled in, the mood in the war room grew somber. Thousands of human lives had been lost in the final push against the Brunali and the chaotic retreat from Crux. But even as they mourned, a new concern arose. "Sir," an analyst interrupted, her voice shaking, "we're getting reports of widespread panic on our outer colonies. They're terrified that the Brunali might have more of these doomsday weapons hidden away." Young's expression hardened. "Then our work isn't finished. We need to continue the fight until we're certain the Brunali threat is neutralized completely." Light years away, on the Brunali homeworld, the first shots of civil war erupted. Zarn stood before a gathering of military officers and political leaders, his voice ringing with conviction. "Gruss has led us to ruin," he declared. "We must remove him from power before he destroys us all." As Zarn's rebels clashed with Gruss's loyalists in the streets of the capital, The Emperor himself retreated to an unassailable fortress, surrounded by his most fanatical supporters. "Let them come," Gruss snarled, madness dancing in his eyes. "We will reduce this entire world to ash before we surrender." In Earth's military command center, Young received word of the Brunali Civil War. He turned to Admiral Liu Wei and Colonel Max Sanders, two of humanity's most decorated officers. "We have an opportunity here," Young said, his voice low and intense. "But we need to act fast. I want you to lead a strike team to the Brunali homeworld. Your mission, neutralize and secure any remaining doomsday weapons before either side can use them." As Liu and Sanders began assembling their team, Admiral Blake's fleet regrouped on the edge of Brunali space. The Admiral's face was grim as he addressed his captains. "We've come too far to turn back now," he said. "While Gruss and Zarn tear each other apart, we're going to deliver the killing blow. Prepare for a full-scale assault on the Brunali core worlds." The fleet surged forward, weapons primed. On the Brunali homeworld, Zarn's forces closed in on Gruss's fortress as human ships appeared in the skies above. The final battle for the fate of two civilizations was about to begin. The dust settled on the Brunali homeworld as the last pockets of resistance crumbled. Grand Admiral Zarn, his uniform tattered and stained, emerged from the rubble of the Imperial Palace to face a phalanx of Earth soldiers. He raised his hands slowly, four-fingered appendages trembling. "I surrender," he rasped, mandibles clicking softly. "The Brunali Empire submits to Earth's authority." Light years away, Caleb Young stood before Earth's Leadership Council, his face a mask of exhaustion. The chamber buzzed with heated debate as Admiral Blake hit his fist on the table. "We should crush them completely." Blake's eyes blazed with righteous fury. "Strip their worlds bare, reduce them to vassal states." Caleb stepped forward, his voice steady despite the weariness etched into every line of his face. "And create a powder keg of resentment that will explode in our children's faces?" He shook his head. "No, we must find a middle ground." Hours of tense negotiation followed. In the end, a compromise was reached. The Brunali would retain limited autonomy on their core worlds, but their vast empire would be dismantled. Earth's fleets would oversee a strict demilitarization, and crushing reparations would be extracted. As the terms were transmitted across the galaxy, Caleb watched the reactions unfold on countless view screens. Human colonies erupted in celebration, while on Brunali worlds, alien faces contorted with a mix of relief and bitter acceptance. Zarn addressed his people, his once regal bearing now hunched and defeated. "We must endure this humiliation," he intoned. "It is the price of our survival." The years that followed saw a galaxy reshaped. Human ships patrolled Brunali space, overseeing the dismantling of their once mighty war machine. Caleb found himself drawn into endless meetings, mediating disputes and quelling flare-ups of violence. One morning, as he pored over reports in his office, an aide burst in. "Sir, we've lost contact with Proxima Centauri." Caleb's blood ran cold. Within hours, the situation became clear. A hardline anti-alien faction had seized control of the colony, declaring their intent to finish what Earth started against all non-human life. Despite his fatigue, Caleb knew he couldn't stand idly by. He donned his old uniform one last time, leading a task force to put down the insurrection. The fighting was brutal, but mercifully brief. As he walked through the streets of New Prague, the colony's capital, Caleb was struck by the depth of hatred he saw in some human faces. Graffiti calling for the extermination of Xeno scum, covered walls pockmarked with plasma burns. That night, unable to sleep, Caleb made a decision that would prove controversial across human space. He drafted a proposal to establish a Brunali enclave on Mars, under human oversight, but with a degree of self-governance. "We must break this cycle," he told the council, his voice passionate despite the exhaustion evident in the slump of his shoulders. "Show them, and ourselves, that coexistence is possible." The debate raged for months. Protests erupted on a dozen worlds. But in the end, Caleb's vision won out. Years passed. Caleb's hair turned gray, then white. He watched from a viewing platform as the first Brunali colonists set foot on the red Martian soil. Their movements were hesitant, their eyes darting warily at the human observers. But as the first domed cities rose from the dust, a fragile hope began to take root. One evening, as twin moons rose over the Martian horizon, Caleb received word that his old friend, Colonel Max Sanders, was on his deathbed. He boarded the first shuttle to Earth, his heart heavy with the weight of unspoken regrets. In a sterile hospital room, two old soldiers who had shaped the fate of galaxies faced each other one last time. Sanders' once powerful frame was wasted by illness, his skin sallow and stretched tight over prominent bones. "Do you think it was worth it, Caleb?" Sanders wheezed, his eyes fever-bright. "All the death, all the destruction. Will it make a difference in the end?" Caleb opened his mouth to respond, but found he had no easy answers to give.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.